This is the one you've all been waiting for.
The complete story of the exciting Bregalunish European vacation.
We started with the idea of taking our picture at each airport along the way, but that got old quickly. Here we are at Spokane.
And here we are in Amsterdam.
That was the last of the airport pictures.
We took a cab from the Berlin airport to the rental agency.
And picked up a shiny new Opel for our journey. We checked into the Carrot Hotel.
Oh, that's me on the balcony.
The next morning, Karen took my picture at the Brandenburg Gate.
Then we switched, and Frank took my picture.
In the center of Berlin, there's a victory column a couple of 100 feet high. I was on my back taking this picture. You can see my knees in the bottom of the picture. Here's another shot without my knees.
This is the Kaiser Wilhelm Memorial Church. It was built in the late 19th century and destroyed during World War II. After the war, they left it in ruins as a memorial.
And just around the corner is the world of the erotic fantasy. We cover it all.
I just like the color scheme of the window display.
Sure. When I was otherwise occupied, Karen went wild photographing buildings. Here's a few.
I like the trim on this one. This one had some fiddly bits, and the yellow color set it off from its neighbors. This one was big and pretty.
And of course, she had to get a shot of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
We went to a part of town that was supposed to be a rebuilt medieval neighborhood. It had a nifty church. And a great pink building.
And certainly some interesting street angles.
I took a bunch of pictures of the nifty church.
I knocked, but they wouldn't let me in.
There were some restaurants there, so we had dinner, but it still didn't seem very medieval.
We later found out that the area had been renovated in the spirit of a medieval neighborhood and not as an authentic neighborhood.
While in the area, Frank pressed the limits of our little camera by taking this picture of the Berlin TV tower in the dark.
The next morning, we chose to ride the subway instead of driving.
And of course, we switched off taking pictures of each other.
We went out to the stadium built for the 1936 Olympics.
Berlin, like Spokane, has a series of fiberglass bears sitting around town, each decorated for a different theme. This is the soccer bear, with his ball beside him.
Outside the stadium, there were these gigantic statues of athletes.
A couple more big guys on the other side of the stadium.
At the stadium, I continued to eat sausage and drink beer, much to my later regret.
When the stadium was new, the German leaders were hoping for a sweep by the German athletes.
But some American guy changed those plans. This is the second level of seats, with Karen sitting at the bottom of the upper area. I went on to the top. These are about the only seats I'd ever be able to afford.
Later that day, we searched all around to find the bust of Nefertiti, only to find that it had been moved to another museum. But I did get to explore the grounds of the Charlottenburg Palace while Frank took a short rest. Later we had dinner, and Frank continued to take in the stuff he should have avoided. The next morning we hit the Autobahn, driving towards Bavaria.
Karen did most of the driving. How did you like that Autobahn?
I hated it.
Why?
Everybody was driving way too fast. There weren't enough signs, and you couldn't understand what the signs were.
Yeah, but you did a great job of it anyway. We drove south through Leipzig and we stopped in Nuremberg.
We stopped in Nuremberg, and I got loose with the camera again. They had a nifty old church and great window treatments, including these sort of bay window structures. They were very intricate. I want one of these on our house. I was surprised Frank wasn't here eating sausage.
I was interested in visiting the home of Albrecht Dürer. You'll remember he was a Renaissance painter and printmaker. Unfortunately best known for drawing a pair of hands. Although things such as his plate for the Anatomy of Melancholy do more to display his talent. Here's a room in the house, and a nifty stove with a couple towels hanging to dry. Lots of pans in the kitchen, and a fire ready to go there as well. Here's another view of the fireplace, and the press where he produced prints. One of his workrooms, and another where he mixed various substances to get just the colors he was after. We also went to the city marketplace.
There was a strange statue there. It looked like a cross between a knight and a cowboy.
Karen walked up to it and put some change in the box in front of it.
Isn't that clever?
What won't people think of?
After Nuremberg, we headed on down into Bavaria, past Munich to Füssen. We made it to Bavaria late, and I wanted to see if I could get a picture of the moon over the lake from our balcony. It didn't turn out too badly.
The next morning I took a picture of the sun coming up. That wasn't a bad picture either. And once it got light, I took a shot from the balcony.
Here's one of the castles that we went down to Bavaria to see. This is the home of parents of Mad King Ludwig.
To get there, we had to walk up through a wooded area past the river.
And walk some more.
And once we were there, we were way up above the town below.
This was their side yard. They have a nice view.
And here's another angle of the castle up there.
And another angle.
And here's the tower on the side of the castle.
And the front view of the castle.
And yet another angle of another side. And here's some lady I saw sitting on a bench up there.
And the castle from across the valley. It was a pretty neat place.
On the way out, we had to go down through this little corridor to take the path back down.
There's the corridor from the top.
There is a fountain supported by various bronze lions.
And the same fountain from a little farther away, showing part of their yard. And then I saw this guy hanging out in the courtyard by a fountain.
And from the area where that castle was, you can see way off in the distance the newer castle. It's known as Neuschwanstein.
And here we are in the courtyard waiting to go in and tour the castle. And here's its tower.
And a view from up inside the castle, looking out to the other parts of it.
And across the valley beside it. It was a beautiful area.
Lots of mountains and trees and such.
And the front gate.
And looking back at it from the front gate.
And more mountains.
Back down in town, there were various tourist-trap kind of restaurants.
And shops.
You'd think I would have been found inside here having a beer or something.
He finally did find one.
After touring the castles, we moved up from Bavaria past Stuttgart to Ludwigsburg, where I had been stationed when I was in the army. Karen was really impressed after we checked into the motel because the TV was on and it said, "Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Urigalunas."
The next day we went to the marketplace. The courtyard was full of people selling fruits and vegetables and flowers and other little knicky-knacky things.
And of course there was a big church in the marketplace, so I had to get a picture of it. Karen was interested in seeing the residential palace. It's the high spot of Ludwigsburg, the kind of place I sort of walked by occasionally when I was in the army.
It was huge. The tour that I took through it was over a mile long.
Here's yet another angle to show you just how big the place was.
And another angle. This was the Protestant church. They also had a Catholic church, but it was busy having a wedding, so we didn't get to see it on the tour. And the upper window of the Protestant church. And one of the rooms. and some more of the rooms. This was the garden. I didn't get out there to walk around. By the time I was through going through the palace, I was too tired. And this is one of the hallways.
One of the things back in the garden was a fairy castle. This was the tower where Rapunzel stayed.
This was a table in one of the rooms in the palace. And some more of the palace. And yet some more. There was a museum of porcelain that had a lot of really interesting things. And this is one of the tea sets. And a little figurine. And another figurine. And a nifty looking little dresser with drawers. And some pretty plates. And some vases.
Or vases.
And some little boxes. These things were for sale. Some more things that they had for sale.
Across from the palace there was some interesting gardening work. This house shows a little. And this was like a 20-foot cube that had vines all over it. You don't really see it from this picture, but it was quite impressive.
Then we went off looking for where Frank had been when he was in the army, and all we found was some gardens at first. This was somebody's vegetable patch. And some more vegetable gardens.
We did finally find where I had lived when I was in the army, at least the place where it was. And what was here now? An empty field. As best I can figure, I'm standing about where my bed and desk in the army barracks had once been. Then we drove north again, up past Heilbronn and Heidelberg, past the old capital of Bonn, and into the city of Cologne. Karen was very impressed by the roadside quickie marts and the way they sold coffee.
Everybody sold coffee served in a china cup. It was very hard to get coffee to go in a paper cup.
Cologne is known mostly for its cathedral, which is rather large and continues up into the sky, all the way to the top.
There's Frank standing in front of it.
To show scale, they have a copy of one of the fiddly bits from the top of the cathedral out where you can stand by it.
Oh, and they also have an old Roman gate there.
There's a nifty hotel right next to the cathedral.
This is more of the hotel. You get to stay there though.
But Karen did go inside.
It had a nice stairway.
We did get better accommodations though than these guys who were sleeping next to the cathedral.
But this was about the view you got from our hotel.
And of course Karen got loose with the china again.
I had to take pictures for samples. And more pictures.
Who's that in the mirror behind the china? And I was impressed because the bakery shop had jelly donuts at the action price of 2 pieces for €1. And just like President Kennedy, I am a jelly donut.
Ich bin ein Berliner.
Karen was impressed by how skinny all the streets were. This is not trick photography. That's actually how close the buildings were to each other, and that actually is a street between them.
There were some really nice looking houses, much different than what we see here in the United States.
We were down by the River Rhine. Here we are and walking by the side of the river with one of the bridges. And while there, of course, I had to sample of a local brew.
There was a church near where we parked the car.
To the right of the church, you can see in the distance the towers of the main cathedral.
This is where we had dinner one night.
Karen had her favorite beverage, Fanta.
Frank had his favorite beverage, beer.
After Cologne, we drove clear across Germany back to Berlin and beyond Berlin. We continued into Poland, up touching the Baltic coast, came over to the city of Gdynia and down to the city of Gdańsk. I was just amazed by this thing. We were driving down the road in Poland and all of a sudden you come to a red light. It turned out that there was road construction, and rather than putting a flagman out there, they just put the red and green light.
This was the hotel we stayed in Gdańsk.
I should have been tipped off when I saw this sign inside the hotel. I mean, when you see a sign that says Uwaga Roboti Budowlane, you know things aren't going to go well.
Here we are having dinner. The menu said this was an authentic Polish meal.
When Karen saw what the meal consisted of, she said, "Frank, go get the camera." The next day we went out and of course Karen took pictures of a few buildings. I was interested in going to this memorial. It was built in the 1980s. In the 70s, some labor protesters had died, and this was a memorial to them. It essentially has 3 anchors crucified on the top of the memorial. And the guy who had set up this memorial, you might have heard of, Lech Walesa. And this was indeed the Lenin shipyard where the Solidarity movement began. There's me to the left, and the photo over the Solidarity sign is, of course, John Paul II, whose photo is just about everywhere in Poland.
Here's another nice building that I took a picture of.
There were some more interesting looking buildings. They seemed awfully tall and thin and painted beautifully.
And more buildings. And more buildings.
With the skinny alleys as well.
This was a neat looking little street that we stopped and I did some shopping along there.
It was near the harbor where you see there's a few boats out there.
including a great big one.
And they had these interesting little dragon heads that spouted out the water that came down the downspout.
Here's another view of the street. And the other side. And more. And more.
And more yet again. I saw this. It was an excavation for a new building, and darned if they didn't find the ruins of some medieval building underneath it.
Here's Frank having his souvenir.
Got myself a beer, got myself a cigarette, enjoying myself in Gdańsk. Karen doesn't enjoy it though.
But Karen was out spending money. Her souvenirs she can take with her. So there's
I'll always have Gdańsk.
goes a left. Then how do I stop it?
Which? Okay, she's unhappy. Oh, there goes that tapping foot. And what do you have to say about that? Uh-oh. After that, we wandered away, took another picture of another church. Karen led me down one of those thin alleys back to the car. I kind of noticed a little tightness in my chest, thought maybe I shouldn't have smoked those cigarettes.
I told you shouldn't drink the beer and smoke the cigarettes, but did you listen? No.
I never do. Boy, I went through about 10 or 15 minutes of pure hell there, and Karen was kind enough to take this flattering picture of me. That's where we'll leave it for today, and we hope by Christmas to have Vacation Part 2 that will carry on from this horrible episode all the way back to the United States.
And you think Frank looks bad here? Wait till you see the next volume.